85 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And we're now moving on to the North Carolina Tar Heels, who I'm going to say, my opinion at least, is it feels like the Sam Howell years were kind of wasted, right? They were supposed to be a contender for the playoff last year. There were lots of high expectations for Mack Brown and company heading into the 2021 college football season, and yet they were still just kind of a mediocre team. Record-wise, at least, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But there's still a lot of nice pieces coming back for North Carolina. So can North Carolina improve record-wise even though their star quarterback is gone? Or will North Carolina prove that maybe Sam Howell was all that and they're going to take a step back in 2022? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football off season. Guys, that means I'm doing your favorite teams. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded, and the fans of North Carolina out there. But this just goes in general. You guys are going to know your favorite team a lot more than me. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, leave that in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read through with what you guys have to say. So let's talk about North Carolina in 2022. This is my 6th ranked team in the ACC headed in to the 2022 college football season. And again, last year felt like it was a wasted season. They were 6-6 in the regular season, 3-5 in conference play. Did not compete for an ACC title like a lot of people, including myself, thought they would. Last year, I had Sam Howell as my Heisman winner. A lot of things went wrong for North Carolina in the Sam Howell years. Just not able to live up to that potential that a lot of people thought they were going to live up to. But this was a North Carolina team that, again, lost their bowl game to South Carolina last year. However, this still was one of the better offenses in the ACC during Sam Howell's time there. 468 yards per game with around 35 points per game. That was the offensive stats last year. The defensive stats last year, defense needed a little bit of work. 408 yards per game with around 31.5 points per game on the defensive side. So definitely a really good, fairly explosive offense for North Carolina. However, the defense might have held him back a little bit. There's still some really good players coming back on this defense that we'll look at here in a little bit, but we got to understand what is leaving. And you've already heard me say it, but of course, quarterback Sam Howell is gone. His stat line, not impressive as a lot of people thought it was going to be, but it's still a good stat line nonetheless. 3,056 yards with 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Was also the team's second leading rusher with 828 yards and 11 touchdowns for North Carolina last year. So this is still, and Sam Howell now, of course, gone to the NFL. So it was still a good season for Sam Howell last year. Not where a lot of people thought he was going to be, but hey, it got him to the NFL, right? You also lose your leading rusher. Along with Sam Howell, you lose your leading rusher, Ty Chandler, who had 1,092 yards and 13 touchdowns for the Tar Heels last year. A couple wide receivers that weren't necessarily as involved in the offense as most people think they should have been, but they're still good talents. Khafre Brown, Emory Simmons, and Bo Corrales are all gone off this team. Also losing tight end Garrett Walston, who had 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Emory Simmons, the best one statistically out of those wide receivers there, 243 yards and a touchdown on only 11 catches last year. On the defensive end, you lose Tomon Fox. And Tomon Fox, your sack leader last year with 9 of them. You also lose Jeremiah Gemmel, who was your second leading tackler with 74 of them, and Eugene Asante. Couple guys in the backfield as well. Kyler McMichael and Trey Morrison. Couple guys gone as well. So when you look at the offense and what's coming back for North Carolina on the offensive end, well, running back, they have that covered. British Brooks, going to be that starting running back next year, or should be. Had 31 carries, 295 yards, and 4 touchdowns from a season ago. Should prove to be that starting option at the running back position. And you're returning your 2 leading wide receivers from a season ago. Josh Downs and Antoine Green are coming back. Couple stat lines for those. Josh Downs was over 1,000-yard receiver, was by far the leading receiver on this team. 1,335 yards and 8 touchdowns, while Antoine Green had 612 yards and 5 touchdowns for him. Couple tight ends, Bryson Nesbitt and Kamari Morales, coming back for this team as well. Two guys that figured to get solid amounts of playing time. But the true question on the offensive end is going to be that quarterback position. And who plays it? Is it Jacoby Criswell? Is it Drake May? A lot of depth chart sites have Jacoby Criswell as that number one option up to this point. And I could see it really going either way. And to be fully honest, I don't know too much about the North Carolina quarterback situation, but from what I've seen from both of these players in spring games and in camps and things like that, I think Criswell should be the starting option at the quarterback position, but we'll have to wait and see who gets named the starter. When you look on the defensive side, you're getting a transfer in from Clemson, Miles Murphy. Otherwise, guys like Travis Shaw, Tomari Fox, Chris Collins, some other guys there on the defensive line, although Collins can play a little bit of linebacker as well. You are returning leading tackler Cedric Gray, who had 99 of them last year, also 2 interceptions from a season ago, as well as Noah Taylor. Miles Murphy, the former Clemson transfer, coming back for this North Carolina team, had 4 sacks for North Carolina last year. When you look at the defensive back group, Cameron Kelly coming back. He had 68 tackles and 4 interceptions for this team last year. Tony Grimes, who led the team with 9 passes defended, as well as Jacorius Conley, who had 46 tackles and 2 interceptions a season ago. So lots of nice talent coming back for North Carolina. The only real question mark, I guess the only big question mark I have is because, of course, replacing Ty Chandler is going to be hard. Replacing guys like Tomon Fox, Jeremiah Gemmel, going to be some hard guys to replace. But the one overarching big thing is who plays quarterback for the Tar Heels in 2021. That's going to be the interesting thing to watch for as we take a look at their schedule here. And this non-conference schedule may not look menacing at first, but it can get a little scary. So the first game against Florida A&M, shouldn't worry about it. I think that'll be an easy win for the Tar Heels. When you look at their next 2 games, though, both of them, you got to go on the road, and you got to play teams in the Sun Belt that can compete and that have given teams in the Power 5 fits before. That's on the road at App State and on the road at Georgia State. You got to watch out because North Carolina, not saying that I'm predicting it, but it is it's a fairly good possibility that North Carolina could lose one of those 2 games on the road. Then you got a home game against Notre Dame as well, and yet again, another hard game. Notre Dame, while they have a lot of question marks and just who fills in at quarterback, is Buckner going to be all he says to be? How does Marcus Freeman fit in? Things like that, right? Notre Dame's still going to be a top 10 team in the nation coming in to 2022. So definitely not an easy game there. And then getting in the conference play, you got home games against Virginia Tech, Duke, Pitt, Georgia Tech, and that final game against NC State. Games on the road against Miami, Virginia, and Wake Forest. So let's dive into the North Carolina Tar Heels schedule. When you look all around again, this is a fairly interesting schedule. There's no Clemson on the schedule. However, you very well are playing possibly the other 4 teams that could prove to be the top 5 teams in the ACC minus Clemson, of course. That's Miami, Pitt, Wake Forest, and NC State. NC State, again, you get them at home to close out the year. That figures to be a very good football team there for the Wolfpack. But North Carolina gets them at home, but you got to watch out for that game. That's going to be a hard game for North Carolina to win. Otherwise, you got to go on the road and play Wake Forest, who's the ACC runner-up from a season ago, and that talent is for real with Sam Hartman, A.T. Perry, a couple other guys coming back there, a couple transfers coming in for that team as well. Wake Forest, still going to be a dangerous team in 2022. When you look to Pitt, I feel like a lot of people are underrating this Pitt team, undervaluing the talent that Pitt has. That can still be an 8, 9, possibly 10-win team at Pitt. North Carolina's got to watch out for. And then, of course, going on the road to play Miami. That is another game right there that you got to watch out for. Miami is a team that's not going to be a pushover this year with first-year head coach Mario Cristobal and lots of talent coming in for that team. But otherwise, you got some other tricky games there. Home against Virginia Tech. We kind of don't know what they're going to be this year. And on the road against Virginia, that's a team with a lot of offensive firepower. And if this North Carolina defense can't take, at least I'll say, a step in the right direction, could be a tough road trip there. But otherwise, I've already talked about their non-conference games. I mean, 2 tricky games on the road against Sun Belt teams that have given Power 5 teams fits in the past. Then a home game against Notre Dame, a probable top 10 team coming into this year. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games where you should be able to win, but watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And games in green are games you're good to win. So that game in week 0, I have no doubt that North Carolina will walk away from that game with a win. But again, looking at the 2 games against the Sun Belt opponents, you got to go on the road. There's problem number 1. You got to go on the road against opponents who can give you a fight. App State, one of the better teams in the Sun Belt year in and year out, in Georgia State, while they might not be competing for a Sun Belt title every year, that is still always a feisty team, and they've given teams like Auburn and other teams fits in the past as well. So those 2 games, watch out. I'm going to favor North Carolina in both of them, and I think they get the win. However, they could be a lot closer than people think. And then when you look at home against Notre Dame there as well, that's the only game in the schedule that is an orange game, although you very well could make it a yellow game since North Carolina has that game at home. I just think it's going to be a really tough matchup for North Carolina and a really hard game for them to win. However, when you move into conference play here, I do see at least three conference wins with this schedule. 2 of them I see at home against Duke, at home against Georgia Tech. You very well could put those games in the darker shade of green there as well, if you would so please. And then at home against Virginia Tech, I think that's going to be a little bit more of a tricky game, but I think North Carolina pulls that one out. Now, when you look at the rest of the schedule here, on the road against Miami, that's going to be a very hard team to win. Miami, a team that a lot of people think can make the ACC championship this year and compete with Pitt in that division. It's also one of the more wide open divisions in college football, but it's really Miami and Pitt up there. North Carolina, of course, has got to play both of them being in the same division in the ACC Coastal. But you got to go play Miami on the road. That's going to be a hard game. Even having Pitt come to your house and play that game, that's going to be a harder one there as well. Going on the road, back-to-back road trips against Virginia, Wake Forest. It's definitely going to be an interesting little stretch of games there from Pitt to Wake Forest. And you'd think North Carolina's got to win at least one of those. However, I very well could see them losing all 3. And then that home game against NC State there at the end of the year. Look, it's a rivalry game going to be played on Black Friday. NC State's supposed to be a fairly good team coming in to this upcoming season. And that could definitely be a tricky game for both sides, but definitely going to be a tricky game for North Carolina. All in all, when you look up and down this schedule, I see a lot of people thinking North Carolina can go 8-4, and I absolutely agree. However, when you look at how North Carolina has done with, in my opinion, better talent on this team, like Sam Howell, like Ty Chandler, Tomon Fox, things like that, I got North Carolina going 7-5 in 2022. Maybe not what some Tar Heels fans would like to hear, but it is a step up in the record game. I do see this team making a bowl game. I don't really see this team not making a bowl game. However, if you really wanted to, you could put that floor at 5-7. That ceiling, though, I think is 9-3. I think this team can contend in the ACC Coastal, but they got to get a lot of stuff figured out, mainly being that quarterback position, and can it live up to Sam Howell expectations? That's going to do it for my preview and prediction video for the North Carolina Tar Heels. And if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. Anything you can helps out the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.